The risk of trading for the futures and options can be substantial. This is the Markets Club podcast is produced by Back Roads of Illinois. I am your host, Cesar Delgado. Welcome to our podcast with us for today. I will talk with Richard Nelson from Allendale Inc. out of McHenry, Illinois. We were talking about the weather in Russia and Ukraine, also in central Illinois and across the Midwest. Great news for U.S. corn to China, however, Mexico is a big buyer and second place to China. We were talking with Richard Nelson from Allendale. We were coming back right after this on the Markets Club. I'm joining with Richard Nelson from Allendale Incorporated. Welcome to the show. How are you, Richard?
I'm doing fine, very well. Certainly a lot of exciting stuff with these markets here today. So a lot of good things to talk about here.
Let's start with our conversation about the planting progress in Illinois and across the Midwest. What is your sources for this planting season?
Well, as it stands right now, this planting season is wrapping up, and certainly our discussions with overall numbers, corn side of things, 91% planted. Soybean discussions, same type of story, 78% planted. In this case, we are wrapping up our discussions with this planting progress and now moving on towards crop development. Overall, we would suggest that corn might be nearing this discussion of staying at trend yields, and soybeans certainly a discussion with aggressive planting. We're actually starting out now with slightly above trend yields for soybeans.
Yes, we were still wet in central Illinois.
I think we do have some spots,
How do the
Indiana,
commodity
portions of Dakotas.
markets took a dip into the prices on these markets because the outside of the markets, do you see impacting the prices of $3 for this fall?
We have lightly raised our downside belief system for this corn market. As of maybe 2 months ago, we were looking for possibly $3.80 to $4 for December futures for a fall low. We have revised that just a little higher now, possibly in that $4 to $4.25 range. Our discussion for us right now is still about this large supply on the U.S. here, not exactly driven by production, but by this large carry-in stocks. So we still suggest there's downside as it stands right now. The question is about this pricing over these next few months until we have those fall lows established.
Are you kidding? But unfortunately, about the demand is lower.
The demand side on the corn end of things is it's actually okay. We have changed pricing for Ukraine. At one point, they were $30 per ton cheaper than us. Now we've revised that to only about a $6 per ton discount. So I think the issue is really the demand side for corn. It's okay. The issue is, of course, are simply the supply issue. The soybean side of things is still a little bit troubled in the very short term. There we have concerns about this export side, which is not getting fixed yet. Brazil has a discount on both old crop and heck, even 3 months delivery for 3 or 4 months down the road. Brazil still has us beat right at the same time when we should be doing our seasonal peaks in shipping. So a little concerned that corn demand's okay. Our issue is supply there. This issue with soybeans is both a little bit of supply issue as well as a little demand issue in the very short term as well.
Right. Brazil soybean production is pretty poor.
And for Brazil, we do expect USDA to very slowly walk down their estimates here into this next report for next week, and certainly going into July and August as well. As it stands right now, we do expect only a minor 1 million ton revision for their crop size, so now 153. Eventually probably down to 150 when it's all said and done. But we're a little concerned that it's going to take USDA a little time to slow walk their numbers down in these coming months. So as it stands, they're still, for a competitor side, still a little stout competitors, and a little bit of a concern here for us in the short term here.
What is your sources for this planting prospective report from the Department of Agriculture on June 30th?
So on the at the end of this month, we do have two reports from USDA. One is simply called acreage, and it's the updated survey of producers, and the second one is a quarterly grain stocks report, account of old crop stocks as of June 1. For the planting numbers, we're not quite sure yet if we're going to have much of a change in corn or soybean numbers compared with the prior March prospective plantings report. As it stands right now, a lot of people have suggested that maybe we'll have a little pop higher in corn acres, maybe lower soybeans, but I think these past few weeks might have changed some of that belief system. So as it stands, we're not really looking for major changes really on these acreage numbers. And the other thing we have to keep in mind is that end of the month report is kind of an artificial one. It asks producers list your acreage as of June 1, planted and to be planted. So it's not really going to be a full realistic discussion on acreage. It's artificial. So we're a little concerned we might have to wait maybe 2 or 3 more months to get a more realistic discussion on the final acreage numbers there.
This spring is weird in here. Too much rain or not enough.
And that's always a question. What I will say is our recent weeks of lightly above normal precipitation have been moderately changed now. With this forecast for clearing skies in this next week and a half ahead, looks like we should get all this wrapped up here and planted without a problem. As it stands, we do have to consider the fact that we're now in the vegetative growth stage for most of these crops. And this is still one where markets get excited about weather at this time, but really it's not a major driver of final yields. Weather at the reproductive phase for corn and soybeans, so July and August, that's really the big issue for us. Forecasts right now do suggest for the month of July, clearing skies and normal moisture will have a little dryness lined up in August and beyond. So we do have a light amount of concern regarding this discussion on trend yields, but probably not yet enough to really change the story here for the general supply situation here.
Could you tell our listeners about the bird, flu, and dairy herd and livestock market? This livestock market is coming up and down for right now.
And the avian flu story is really interesting. We do of course have it in confirmed cases in multiple states for dairy cows. We have human transmissions to humans here in the U.S. As it stands right now, this is probably more of a story for the media to focus on rather than providing actual changes to supply or demand dynamics. One thing about this discussion is U.S. consumers historically, they don't make changes to meet demand based on virus or disease scares. So as it stands right now, we're really not changing supply numbers enough to impact prices too much. And the price moves we have had are more based on psychology rather than actual demand changes. One thing I got to point out with this cattle market is wholesale beef has not just retested its spring high, but it actually is now over its spring high, which is quite unusual for this time of year. So cattle market, maybe we have a little weakness just due to supply numbers over the next couple of months. And we're going to go back to real tight supplies by the end of the year. I'm a little concerned about the hog side, not really due to avian flu, but a little more concerned about this overall demand concern about pork going to Mexico and other factors there. So cattle market, it has been impacted by psychology.
I heard about that other cases again in Michigan. Media is downplaying what CDC has issued by remain low.
That is right. Do have this latest case out here. And in terms of the trade mentality, this is something where we're kind of watching it kind of carefully. One thing which we can say is it's not impacting actual supplies of beef or milk in terms of production. The issue we're going to watch kind of carefully is really on the chicken production side. Uh, USDA estimates a 1% increase in chicken production for the year. That's the question. Will we get that increase, or would this be enough to maybe rein in some of that discussion here?
Do you have any final thoughts on Brazilian production and weather in the Midwest alongside in central Illinois?
So, as far as Brazil production, we have lightly trimmed some of the soybean numbers due to the excess rains in the far southern state of Rio Grande do Sul. It's probably not enough really to change the general story for them. The discussion on corn, this is going to be probably a bigger issue there. Second crop corn is both right now in its kernel fill stage for most areas, and it has now lightly started harvest in the northern areas. And keep in mind, Brazil has about a 4 month long harvest process, so this is still a long process. What I will suggest is second crop corn states in Brazil, they have seen a 6 week period of about 60% below normal moisture. So if there is a story adding a little support here for us, it would be with corn, and it would be maybe in the coming months, light declines in production, especially for that. So as far as production, we're concerned about the corn side, maybe not soybeans too much. The second part of your discussion about Midwest weather. I do think we do have this light period of excess rains we've had. It's going to ramp up. We're doing just fine. And I cannot disagree with the idea of right now, corn is probably right at trend yields, and soybeans, due to planting progress, are lightly above trend yields as it stands right now. The corn, and as far as the discussion with Brazil, as far as this dry story, which has restarted in that mid-March period, I do think we've got a little concern about, like I mentioned, this little dryness discussion, but probably a bigger issue for us is moving up towards this pricing issue. As it stands right now, U.S. and Brazil are even priced on the corn side. Soybean side of things, here we are running in this case about a $20 discount when factoring their shipping advantage. So that's one issue. And keep in mind, our discussion with soybeans with Brazil is really also a new crop issue, with this discount they have now widening to about $30 per ton for new crop delivery. So we are a little concerned about the pricing issue here.
Thanks, Richard.
Happy to help. Thank you so much for your time.
This is Richard Nelson from Allendale Inc. out of McHenry, Illinois. This is the Markets Club podcast. Thanks to Richard Nelson from Allendale. This is the wrapped up for the show. Otherwise, you can subscribe and listening for this episode whenever you got your podcast. For the Markets Club podcast, I am Cesar Delgado.